I met Amy in 1985. We were 18 and just starting college. The college threw us together as roommates. We were just so exuberant with each other. Everything was so new and so exciting. We wore each other's clothes and we called each other Amesley and Ansley, and we were just obnoxious in that way that two young women can be.
Amy was my sister friend. That's how we talked about each other. We were both at Earlham College, and I happened to be seated next to her in concert choir. And she was this very beautiful, talented, she was a comic, she was in the same Peace and Global Studies program that I was, but she was 2 years older, you know, she was kind of like big woman on campus.
I'm from the East Coast, and when I first heard my roommate was from Iowa, I was like, we're gonna have curtains in our windows, like surely she like sews and, you know, cans and I don't even know what all. Every Friday night she would sit down with her Bible and underline and highlight. I'd never seen anyone highlight a Bible before. It seemed almost sacrilegious to me. And she said things like Jeezy peasy and golly and, oh, what was the other one? Shooty patootie. That was the other. That's how she would swear. What I remember our sophomore year was she was dating this guy who was building a clavichord for his like senior project or something. One day he stood her up, and I just remember her hanging up the phone and pounding the phone and saying, I'm done, I'm so done with Andy, he can just suck my dick. And she's sobbing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Amy Van Meter just swore, right? And I'm trying not to laugh. Truth is, she had the worst taste in men. I don't know how Will came about, because he is an exemplary human being.
We were in a class together, a class called Ecological Biology. That's when I first saw Amy, but I didn't really know her. We certainly got to know each other, really, for the first time when we moved into the house together.
There were 5, maybe 6 Earlham undergraduates living in that house. And that's where I met him. I liked him immediately.
She and I became really good friends and just spent a lot of time hanging out together, staying up late, talking. She would share with me her issues with her boyfriend, or, you know, successes and failures in acting. Or when she graduated, I really noticed that I missed her, and I remember going up to Chicago to tell her that I loved her, and that was a big deal for me. Yeah, just to realize, oh my God, I'm in love with this woman. It was a couple years later that when we were living together in Chicago that Amy said, sort of in a very lighthearted way, will you marry me? And I laughed it off because I thought she was joking. And then a few months later, we were kind of in another light mood, and she said, will you marry me? And I laughed again. She said, yeah, you laughed last time I asked. And that's when I realized, oh, she's serious. She would really like to get married. I'm like 21 at this point. And I said, geez, you know, I can't imagine ever getting married. And it took me another couple of years to feel that way with her and realize, oh yeah, I can't imagine really being with anybody else that I'd love more.
I think he was honest, empathetic, a good listener. Yeah, I think they mirrored each other in lots of ways.
When she left Earlham, she then went on and did a master's program at Notre Dame. That's when she and Will then were together in Cincinnati as he did his master's work. And they're out to Santa Barbara.
And as soon as we got there, she got this fantastic job at the university working with wonderful people, employing her skills and her background, which we thought never would happen. You know, it was all about her motivation and personal engagement with the world to make it a better place. And this job was about engaging people and helping them resolve conflict and, you know, working with students and roommates, landlords, tenants, and helping them resolve conflict. So it was absolutely perfect.
I remember when she came home and said, my major is going to be Peace and Global Studies. And we all went kind of, oh. well, that sounds great, but how's that going to pay the bills, you know? Turns out it paid them very well. She became an advisor at the university and a mediator.
So it was a couple years before we got married that she was diagnosed with MS. The symptoms were pretty mild, but it finally, really took effect when she stopped being able to walk. When Amy and I decided we wanted to get married, Amy's mom, Lee, came to me and sat and talked about, like, okay, are you sure you want to get married to somebody with MS?
She was so angry at me and was so upset with me and so disbelieving that I could have done what I did. But at the end of it, as I recall, she said, we were all doing the best we could. And so she forgave me.
He was pretty clear that he didn't want to have kids. And she wasn't quite ready to give up on that. And he was really clear, like, what if I have to take care of you? So, I think about the extraordinary nature of Will McClintock, and I think they're young. And to be thinking, like, I'm marrying somebody who I might have to take care of. And doing it and showing up anyway is pretty impressive.
I performed Will and Amy's wedding while I was in seminary. The ceremony itself was, in Iowa City at this beautiful museum. Amy was already pretty, I don't know if she was using a chair. I think she was, but she was bound and determined that she was going to walk down the aisle. She was gorgeous, and Will was in his tux, and I just remember the beauty of it, but also all of these like dear, dear people who were present.
I was one of those guys who shows up at his wedding and it's kind of all put together. So it was a blast that way.
And at one point, Will started to cry during the ceremony, and Amy kind of helped him through it so he could finish his vows.
I will take you, Amy, to be my life companion, to share my life openly with you, to speak truthfully and lovingly to you, to accept you fully as you are, to delight in who you are becoming, respect your uniqueness, encourage your fulfillment, and support you through all the changes of our years together. Yeah, I haven't read that since that day.
I have always had close friendships, but I have never had a friend like Amy. I felt deeply heard and seen and known, and part of that was just her incredible kind of listening heart.
Whenever this time of year rolls around, I think, oh, this is when we met. It's fall for me. I mean, it's also when she died. But I look at college students now, and they're so young and so beautiful. And they don't even know how beautiful they are. Amy used to talk about her big hips, and she hated her hips when she was using the wheelchair. I remember her saying, I'd give anything to have that body back. I hated it at the time. And it moved through the world. My legs walked and danced. I see these young people and I want to say, oh, just embrace it. Life's so short.